Hey guys, today I'm going to cover a prototype for the Atari 7800 that never came out, and that prototype is Klax. Klax for the 7800 was based on the Atari Games arcade game. Now, if you didn't know, when Atari was sold by Warner in 1984, it was split into two divisions. Atari Games, that's the arcade division, and Atari Corp, that's a home division that made the Atari 7800. So even though both are Ataris, Atari Games and Atari Corp, they're two different companies. But both companies had a good working relationship with one another, although Atari Games also released their games such as Klax on other systems under the name Tengen. Now, Klax on the 7800 has a copyright year of 1992, meaning that it would have came out about 2 years after they stopped releasing games for the 7800 here in America, which is pretty late. It makes you think that Atari Corp might have been thinking about releasing a few more games to see if there was more interest, but then canned them instead. Klax is a puzzle game that was inspired by a combination of tic-tac-toe and Tetris. You have all these tiles coming down a conveyor belt, and you have a bin at the very end that can stack tiles up to 5 high and 5 across. Whenever 3 tiles of the same color match either diagonally, horizontally, or vertically, they disappear. To control the game, you use the joystick to move your little handle left and right. You can press down on the joystick to make the tiles come down the conveyor belt faster. If you have a tile on your holder, you could press up to throw it back on the conveyor belt, but it will come back down. You can also press either button to drop a tile in the bin below. Your little paddle can hold up to 5 tiles at a time. There is a little counter at the top left portion of the screen, little empty ovals. Every time a tile falls off the conveyor belt, one of those ovals are filled. If they all get filled, your game is over. Klax for the 7800 had 3 difficulty levels: easy, normal, and hard. Every round of Klax is considered a wave. How to defeat that wave depends on the wave itself. There are Klax waves where you need to complete a certain number of Klaxes, that's 3 or more in a row, either diagonal, horizontal, or vertically. There are diagonal waves where you have to complete a certain number of diagonal Klaxes, horizontal waves, which is just like diagonal except horizontal, point waves where you must score a certain number of points, and the bigger your Klax, the bigger the number of points, and the tile wave where you must survive a certain number of tiles. There are also some glowing tiles that can be used as wild cards. They will match any color that they are touching. In some levels, if you get a certain pattern like a 5x5 X diagonal, you can actually warp ahead several waves. Apparently this game has 100 waves, and if you beat those, you can access some secret impossible level waves that are very difficult to beat but not impossible. Of course, I am not that good of a Klax player, so I was lucky just to get through a few waves myself. Graphically speaking, I think the game looks pretty good. I like the backgrounds. However, I did have a little problem with some of the tiles looking too much like other tiles of similar colors, but the shades being slightly off, so sometimes it was hard for me to differentiate between the two. Also, I did have trouble in this version of Klax of being able to easily tell when I had 5 tiles already stacked up high in the bin. The sounds are okay, but of course they're lacking the digitized wonderful sounds from the arcade game itself. And naturally, this is a family-friendly game. So what did I think of Klax? Well, to be honest with you, I'm just not a big fan of Klax in general. Never been a huge fan of the game, even the arcade version. However, I will say that this is a relatively well-made version for the Atari 7800, even considering that it's just a prototype. It almost feels like it could have been a finished game, and possibly it was, but Atari Corp decided just not to release it. It also would have been nice to give the 7800 a puzzle type game, a category which it really didn't have any games of. But at the same time, in 1992, the industry was already moving on with the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, as well as the Sega CD, so it's understandable why Klax did get shelved, as I'm assuming sales probably wouldn't have been that great, as most 7800 owners had moved on by that time. But still, it is a shame that it never got released, especially if you are a Klax fan. At this point in time, I'd like to give a special thank you to Cover Art Kevin, aka Kevin Moss 3 at Atari Age, for sending me his cartridge of Klax for the 7800. Thank you very much, Kevin. I definitely appreciate it. I'd appreciate it if you click the like and subscribe buttons, and also follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you guys for giving me a little part of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care, everybody.